Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I'm going to get started with this video. Usually I wait a few minutes for people to join, but right now I have a limited amount of time, and this is going to be a short hangout. So for the past couple of days, I've been reading these stories about Gregory Allen Bush. This is a white man in the Louisville, Kentucky area who went into a Kroger's grocery store and he shot one African American man in the back of the head. And after he shot this brother in the back of the head, he continued to shoot this brother multiple times, killing him. Now, the person that he killed, his name is Maurice Stallard, and he killed this brother in front of his grandson. And then this man went outside of the grocery store and he shot an African American woman by the name of Vicky Lee and killed her in the parking lot. Now, this man has been arrested. But before I get into that, somebody was there on the scene, a civilian had a gun, and this civilian exchanged fire with this guy. This guy has been arrested. He's jailed on $5 million bond, and he's charged with 10 counts of various offenses, and he's charged with murder, obviously. And the thing that's very important to point out is that before he went to this grocery store, he tried to go into an African-American church. And the name of the church is First Baptist Church in Jeffersontown, Kentucky. So he tried to go in that church. The door was locked. And according to one of the articles that I read, at the time when he went to that church, it was locked because there were only like 10 to about 8 to 10 people in the church at that time because there was some event that happened before and they were, I guess, closing up. So the church was locked. But like an hour and a half before, there were 70 people in that church. And those people could have been shot or killed. It could have been possible for that guy to get into the church and proceed to kill those people. It's only for the grace of God that we didn't have another situation like what happened in Charleston, South Carolina, where you had Dylan Roof, a white guy, white supremacist, go into a black church and kill 9 people. Thank God that this man wasn't able to get into that church, but he went to this grocery store and he killed 2 black people. And there's been some speculation, like you had the law enforcement basically say, well, we can't determine whether or not this is racially motivated at this particular point. But one thing that's very important to note is that somebody actually observed this man leaving the scene with a gun in his hand. This was a white man who observed him. And this man said this to this white guy. He said, "Don't shoot me. I won't shoot you. Whites don't shoot whites." That's what this man said. So it is clear to me, if that statement was in fact a statement that he made, that his intentions were to kill black people. He went to a black church. He intended to kill black people when he went to that church. Then he goes to a grocery store and he targets black people. And then he makes this statement about whites not shooting whites. So it's clear to me that this man had some racial motivation. And then when you go into the history, this man reportedly called his ex-wife the N-word. This man is abusive. This man uses racial slurs according to the reports that I've seen. And the thing that's odd is that this man may have a black wife, because I can't think of any reason why a white man would call another white woman the N-word. So I'm assuming that he had a black wife. His ex-wife is black. That's what I'm assuming. And then on his Facebook page, he has a picture of his son on there, and his son looks like he could possibly be biracial. So that strikes me as odd, that you have a black woman in a relationship with a racist. I mean, this guy has made racist statements according to these reports. This guy is violent. So I just can't understand why a black woman would be with a white racist. But this is no surprise. I've seen, other situations where you have black women in relationships with white men that have some kind of fetish for black women. They have a fetish for, being in a relationship with a black woman. In these types of relationships, they have called black women, the N word, and, made all these slave references and, degrading black women and black people, but they don't have any problem with sleeping with black women. So this whole thing just is very disturbing, that just the idea of this white man, this white racist, this killer being with a black woman just boggles my mind. But I want to just highlight a couple of points before I close out, and I'm going to get to your comments in a second. The first thing that I want to emphasize is just the importance of black churches being security conscious. Thankfully, this black church was locked, and this man could not get into that church. But too often, the church is so welcoming. They have their guard down. They just allow anybody and everybody into their church without screening these people at all. So they make themselves vulnerable to these types of attacks. And they need to be more on point. They need to screen who goes into their church. They shouldn't just let any Joe Blow off the street wander in their church, especially some random white guy that's never been to your church before that comes in there alone. That should put you on notice and on guard. And they just need to be on point with the security, man. They need to search these people, somebody that looks suspicious, make sure that somebody prevents them from getting into the church. And they need to have people there that know how to use weapons, that are armed, that are prepared to protect the church. And there's nothing wrong with having armed security. It's only common sense in this age where you got people sending around pipe bombs, where you have these people wandering in church, killing people. You would think that the church would be a safe haven for black people, a place where black people could pray, a place where black people could be at peace. But in this society in which we live, you're not even safe in your church. So I think that the church needs to get on point, and they need to screen people. Just like the Nation of Islam, for instance, they don't just let anybody wander up in their mosque. They screen people, they search people, they check people, because they know that there are people that are out to get them. And, unfortunately, even, these mainstream churches that aren't controversial, that aren't militant or anything like that, they are still subject to attacks simply because they are black institutions. And people just need to get on point and realize this. And we as a people need to be on point, period. We need to be conscious of our environment. We need to be security conscious. We need to be aware of who's around us and stuff like that. We can't get caught sleeping, man. It's just a shame. I mean, you go to a grocery store, you're going there just to buy groceries, you're with your grandson, and all of a sudden you're shot in the back of the head and killed in front of your grandson. I mean, this man shot this man multiple times after he shot him in the head, in the back of the head. These are the kind of people we're dealing with. We just have to be on point and aware. And I think that every single black person needs to know how to use firearms so that you can protect yourself and your community from these types of animals, man, these kind of beasts that want to prey upon black people. We can't allow there to be another one of those Dylan Roof situations. We have to stand up to these racists, man. And, I'm glad that this man has been captured. I'm glad that he faces charges. And I hope that he's punished to the full extent of the law. It's just that. And one thing that I just have to highlight is just like how all of us, the first thing that these people do in these types of situations in terms of the media, how they cover these things, and even law enforcement, they want to downplay the issue of race. They want to say, well, this is not a racial matter. They want to always assume that it may not be a racial matter. They always want to give it the benefit of the doubt and say we can't jump to conclusions. But there's too many things pointing to the fact that this is a racial matter, as I said before. I mean, first of all the people he killed are black. Second, he made that racist statement about, whites not shooting whites, even though white people kill each other every day. He makes that kind of statement. Then, it turns out that this man actually tried to go into a church. So it's clear that this man's intentions were clear. A black church, tried to go up in a black church. And, in the article, they were saying like how he, had been charged with assaulting his parents at one point. that this man has a criminal record. He's threatened his ex-wife. Again, his ex-wife is maybe black. From what I understand, she probably is black because he's on record, according to these articles, as calling her the N-word, man. So it just makes it abundantly clear that this man is, a racist, and that he was targeting these victims based on their race. And this is nothing but a hate crime. That's what it is. And, thankfully there was somebody there on the scene with a firearm, even though I don't know if that person handled the firearm in the correct way, because he didn't shoot this person. They were just shooting at him. And, some people said that the civilian that had a gun that was trying to protect people was actually endangering people by just shooting in a way that could possibly hit other people. But, if that person wasn't there, who knows how many more people that man would have killed. And we just got to be armed. We got to be prepared to defend ourselves, man. We got to learn how to use weapons. You have these white supremacist groups that are training every day to wage race war in America while we're lollygagging, while we're, not being serious and not being on point, man, not even thinking about surviving if there was that kind of situation. So we just got to get on point, man. We got to learn how to use these weapons and learn how to protect ourselves. And there's nothing militant about self-defense. It's nothing extreme about that. Every civilized nation on this earth has an army. They tried to have an army to defend their community, their nation. And why should we be any different? Why should we allow ourselves to be killed by these police, by these white supremacists, and by even the thugs in our community? It's time for us to defend ourselves like any other nation does, and no longer be victims, no longer be victims of this kind of brutality, this senseless type of violence. So with that, I'm going to look through your comments, and then I'm going to sign out. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. Be Intellectual said, unblock my other channel. I don't even know what your other channel is. I'm not sure. It may be that B1 Intellectual channel. I'm not going to look for it. If you can email me or something to give me the information about your channel. I don't know why you were blocked. I'm sure that, like, the moderators had a reason for blocking your comments. But if you send me your information, you can email me at newpossibilityblog@yahoo.com, and send me a link to your channel. I'll check it out, and I will possibly unblock it, because I haven't noticed you trolling on here, but I know that the moderators, if they blocked you, it was for a reason. Yeah. So Water Sniper said that he had a black wife. Now, shout out to Evan King. Yeah, it's crazy. I just can't understand why a black woman would be with somebody like this. And, probably, like in most situations in relationships, somebody gets into a relationship and they don't know the person fully. They don't know what kind of person they are. They may not know that they have these racist tendencies. But it's like, you got to vet people better, man. And it's like, unfortunately, some of our people had a mentality that, as long as he's white, he's all right. As long as he's white, he's a better option and all that kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff that these, swirlers and stuff don't want to talk about. They don't want to address that. And, I'm going to dig a little deeper into this. If I get more information, I'll probably do a separate video on that whole subject. But it's not surprising. We saw that situation where you had that black, or what people call biracial, girl who was with this white man that was saying all this racist stuff and, using the N-word and talking about, making derogatory comments about Black Lives Matter. We've seen this stuff before. You got that interracial couple on here that got into some controversy because the husband was making all these derogatory statements about black women. And that same black woman that was with this white guy defended this guy and made excuses for him and criticized the people that had the courage to call him out for his racism. So you see this situation too often, where some black women are eager to play the mammy role to these white men, eager to to suck up to these men and, cater to these men, even though these are some racist men. Again, I've told you all about this multiple times. You had this article in Essence where this black woman was married to this white guy who got off by calling, her the N-word and using the N-word and, making all these other derogatory and racist comments. So this is nothing new. I mean, racists like that Strom Thurmond. This man was a staunch segregationist, but he had no problem laying down with black women. It's too often, some black women confuse that, and they think that because he's laying down with them or he's in a relationship with them, somehow he's not racist or somehow he's absolved of racism. Like, you got this one black woman I did a video about a while ago who married a white supremacist, married somebody that was a neo-Nazi, married this guy. Knowing his history of violence towards black people. That's just how lost some of our people are. Just like some of our men are in the sunken place, people like a Kanye West and these other coons that be foaming at the mouth over these white women. I mean, you have black women that had the same mentality. So it's just a shame, man. Shout out to Nikki Justice. Yeah, so let's see what's up. So Water Sniper said he had a black wife and they had a child together. Yeah, it looks like they did, because that, like I was saying earlier, I saw a picture of his son on his Facebook page, and his son looks like he could be biracial. I'm not 100% sure on that. Okay, so somebody said that Tariq addressed this. Hold on one second. I must have pressed the wrong button, but yeah, it says, this James Hall said that Tariq addressed the shooting in his video, and he stated that the guy has a black ex-wife and son, divorced in the early 2000s. He used to beat her and call her the N-word. Yeah, I mean, according to the articles that I read, there is a history of, domestic violence against his own parents. Also, they were trying to say he's mentally ill, and that's what they often do. Like, I was trying to make that point earlier. Like, they'll be quick to say, well, it's probably not, let's not assume that it's a hate crime. Then the other thing that they go to is, well, it's mental illness. They never call this stuff terrorism. Rarely do they call it terrorism. They always want to assume that this person is mentally ill. And it may be the case here, but, too often they point in that direction, man, to kind of absolve these people of their guilt, of their violence, and all that kind of stuff, man. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that woman is in fact black. Again, I'm going to dig deeper into that, and I may do a whole separate video or hangout on that subject. Shout out to Don't Let Them School You. All right. Just bear with me a second. Yeah, now that's a great point, Water Sniper. Water Sniper says somehow they arrest him with no issue. He's captured alive. Yeah, I mean, you have black people who are stopped for minor things and they end up dead. But when you have these white supremacists who commit all these acts of violence against black people, killing multiple black people, like that guy Dylan Roof, when he killed all those people in that church, he was arrested without incident. When you had this guy who just killed two people in a Kroger's grocery store, he's arrested without incident. When you had that guy in New York stab a random black guy, he was arrested without incident. When you had that guy kill a black guy on the University of Maryland's campus, He was arrested without incident. It's like when these white supremacists kill black people, they are often arrested without incident, without being with a scratch on them. But when it comes to black people are killed for basic things, being stopped for a broken tail light, and they end up getting shot in the back multiple times. You remember Walter Scott? Somebody gets stopped for something minor like selling cigarettes on the street, and they end up getting choked to death. You remember Eric Garner? People get stopped for other things, minor things. That brother Philando Castile was in his girlfriend's car, and they were stopped for some minor thing, and that brother ends up getting shot and bleeds to death live on Facebook. That's what happens to black people, man. Getting killed over minor things. But when it comes to these white people, they give them the benefit of the doubt. They're able to arrest them without incident, without any kind of killing or anything. You had the situation in New York, not New York, Chicago, where the brother Laquan McDonald was walking away from the police, and he was shot and killed. Why is it that these people are always able to arrest these white supremacists, white terrorists without incident? But when it comes to black people get killed over very minor offenses. Yeah, so that's a very good point, Water Sniper. Just bear with me a second. Yeah, so BB said that there's a pension crisis in Kentucky. And maybe he had an issue with one of the fund managers being black. Yeah, I don't know about that issue that's going on. Oh, we got somebody from Oxford, UK. Thanks for tuning in. And I'm glad to hear you expressing solidarity with your people here in America. It's like we all got to have a Pan-African mindset, man. We got to look at ourselves as all one people, man. All Africans are one people. I mean, I know that we have some cultural differences, but at the end of the day, we're all black. At the end of the day, we all came from the continent of Africa. At the end of the day, the only reason why we're scattered throughout the world, for the most part, is because of the slave trade. Like, Africans were taken and brought to America. They were brought to the Caribbean. They were brought to South America and even parts of the Middle East. And some were actually enslaved in Europe and stuff. So we just got to look at ourselves as one people, man, and unite around common issues, fighting against racism, white supremacy, imperialism. So that gives me hope, man, because a lot of times, people are divided, along these artificial lines instead of uniting, not realizing that we're all African people and we need to work together. Let me just continue going through your comments. Yeah, that's a good point. That's something that I was saying, like Bonafide 1970. Being married to a black person doesn't make you not racist. It doesn't automatically mean that you're not a racist person. I cited all those other examples of racist people who dated and married black people, but still they had that racist mentality, and it doesn't change who they are. So let's see. Yeah, that's a good point, Ill Wills. Like when they captured that guy, Dylan Roof, they gave him Burger King. They treated him with respect. They put him into that car or gently. And, just when it comes to black people, man, they don't show us any respect. They're quick to shoot over minor things. Like somebody ends up dead when they were stopped over something trifling, something stupid. Like that Sam DuBose situation. He was stopped over some license plate issue or something else, and he ends up dead. The sister, Corinne Gaines, she was stopped over a license plate issue. And because of that, that led to like an arrest warrant, and that sister ended up dead. They're always willing to wait it out when it comes to these white people, man. When it comes to their fellow white people, they're always willing to wait it out. They're always willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, and they end up taking these people without incident. And I'm not saying that there should be an incident. I'm just saying stop killing black people. Stop, turning a basic situation into a life and death type of situation. People shouldn't be killed over some broken tail light. People shouldn't be killed because they owe some child support. People shouldn't be killed over something minor. That's all I'm saying, man. Yeah, it would be easy. Like Pan-Africanism is something that would be easy if more people had a Pan-African mindset, not only just continental Africans, but African Americans. I mean, this mutual type of self-hatred or hatred towards each other is a problem on both sides. I mean, you have Africans, for instance, that look down on African Americans, and you have African Americans who obviously look down on Africans. I mean, many of us remember what we were taught as kids. We use terms like African booty scratchers. We had been programmed for the longest time to hate Africa, to view Africa as the dark continent, as the jungle, as people just living in huts and swinging from trees. That's the kind of things we were taught. We were taught that they were cannibals and all that stuff. I was just having a conversation with someone, and they were talking about Africans eating each other, chopping each other up, and all that kind of stuff. So it's like a lot of programming that leads to the division that you're talking about. So yeah, with that, I want to thank everybody in the chat room. Shout out to BB, shout out to Big Game, Orenthal, James, shout out to everybody. Shout out to Madam Whip-Ass. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. So for those of you that are catching this recorded, please rate, comment, and subscribe. Hit that like button and hit that notification button so that you will know when I post content on here. You will know right away, so that way you can check me out. So with that, I want to thank y'all. Peace and blessings. Have a great weekend. And I may be back on here. I'm going to try to do one more hangout. I want to talk about that guy, Michael Avenatti, the guy that represented Stormy Daniels, and just some statements that he made about black people and about the Democrats nominating someone for president. So y'all look out for that. I may do that back to back, like right after this one. But stay tuned. Peace.